Hello and welcome to this video and to August's book review. I forgot what month we were in. It's been one of them. I felt a bit slumpy in August, I have to say. I did manage to read 6 books, I think it is, but nothing really, I don't know, there's just certain things in the month that, although I was still reading, I wasn't really feeling it. But we're going to jump into it and then you can see why, I guess. So the first book I read in August was Vicious by E Schwab. This is the first book in a series, and as you know, I was taking part in the What Victoria Read Summer Challenge, which August was the last month, so I put this to 4 paws in a book to read a fantasy book, or romantasy, but fantasy. I may have stretched it slightly with this one, but they are superheroes, so, or super beings, not really heroes because they're not very nice. But in this we are following Victor and Eli. They meet at university and they do like a project to work out how to create powers in people and subsequently create powers in themselves. And then years later they are mortal enemies and they meet again. Basically this book is sort of bad people doing bad things to each other. This was my book club pick, and all of us were just sort of meh with it, and I'm very much on the same page with that. It has a slightly strange way of telling the story. It jumps about in time a lot and I didn't really like that, and then all of a sudden it switches to a countdown, but because you know exactly what's going to come when that countdown ends, it was kind of a pointless thing, and I didn't like the jumps in time, so I didn't get on with the structure of this book very much. V. Schwab is a good writer, that's easy to say. I mean, I read Invisible Life of Addie LaRue earlier in the year, so she is a good writer, but the structure of this didn't work for me at all, and I found it a bit more, not necessarily confusing, I just didn't like it. It just didn't really work for me. I think this is an interesting concept about how to create powers, and the way that you do it means which power you get. I don't want to give too much away. It's a very interesting concept, I just don't think the book was executed particularly well. I probably would have wanted more of the university side of things to the modern day bit. And I really don't get how there's a sequel to this. I'm a bit confused about where they can go from here. How can they follow it up? But there we go. I probably won't be picking up the sequel. I didn't enjoy this enough to warrant that. I don't think it's even one that I'd get from the library, or if I saw it cheap in a charity shop. I don't think it's even one of those ones. I think this is me one and done for this series. Saying that, there were some characters that I did like. So Sydney is a teenage girl, maybe preteen. I really liked her, and Mitch is also a character that I liked. He's a man, without giving spoilers obviously. So those two did bring up my rating of this book because I like them, and there's that element of sort of found family in it, which again was enjoyable. But there wasn't enough of it to really make me want to scream and shout about this book. So I gave it 3 stars. As I said, I did enjoy the writing and the concept of the book is good. I just wasn't keen on the execution particularly. So yeah, that is Vicious by V. Schwab. I was also listening to not an ebook, I was also listening to an audiobook called The Dead Husband's Cookbook. And this was by Danielle Valentine, and I put that to the prompt of reading a crime or mystery, which was Emily Kathleen's one. This is also an ARC, so an advanced reader copy from NetGalley, and the book came out around about the same time that I finished it, so I got in there just in time to get my review in before it was published. This is a mystery, I suppose you'd say it, and we're following a publisher, an editor, who is asked to come in to a really famous chef's house to edit her memoir, but surrounding this chef there's this element of mystery because her very famous chef husband, like 20 years earlier, died, and it's, did she murder him, that kind of stuff. So we're following that story as that unfolds and you find out more about it. So within this you've got extracts of the memoir, and I really liked that sort of book within a book structure, and it worked well for the audiobook to have that as well. I don't know whether it would have worked quite as well reading it, but because you had that, you didn't know whose side was the right side, which one was the truth. It all got a bit, you know, tied up in each other, and you're hearing one thing here but then the memoir says that, and yeah, so it does make you question your narrators and that kind of thing a bit more. I wouldn't say that the book had any particularly shocking twists or turns to it. Maybe I've just read a few too many of this style of thriller and mystery that nothing was that shocking to me. I didn't find any like complete gasp moments. I'd pretty much worked out where we were going before they got revealed, so it does lose its sort of star rating if I can work that one out. And you do have to like suspend disbelief. No, suspend belief at points. Some of it is a bit farcical and you go, I'm not sure that's actually how you could how any of that can happen. So but then I guess in most thrillers you have to do that as well, so it is that too. The audiobook narrator was good, not my least favourite, not my favourite, but for one of the characters she did make her sound like exactly like Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada, and that was very distracting. Not a book that has particularly stayed with me. I read it towards the beginning of the month and I can't remember a huge amount about it. It was enjoyable enough. Again, I gave this one 3.5 stars. Yeah, if it's there, give it a listen, but I probably wouldn't go out my way to search it out. The next book I read was one of the oldest on my TBR, and one that I was scared about, and rightly to be, and that was Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I added this to the if only for a page prompt to read a book with travel in it, because in this we are following, I've forgotten her name entirely, Marion, who in the sort of Depression War era, around there, so 20s onwards, her ambition is to become a pilot, and one of her things is to circumnavigate the globe, going sort of that way rather than that way. So pole to pole, I guess, is the way that she wanted to do it, which ends in her sort of crashing. And in this book we've got her story, but we've also got a modern day perspective from an actress who has been cast to play her in a film of her life. And I was daunted by it because it's chunky, because it's more lit-ficky than I'm used to, that kind of aspect, and the text is reasonably small. There are parts of this that I really enjoyed, and then there are parts of this that really dragged. So it's hard to work out where I feel with it. I feel like this could have done with a bit more editing, personally. I feel like we could have had some stuff taken out, because I think it's a bit too long, and as I said, there were parts that dragged and were a bit dull, but then there were parts that I flew through and really enjoyed. This is probably why I felt slumpy in the month of August with my reading, because it took me an awfully long time to read. I would sit down and read for like a good hour and only get through like 15 pages. It took time, it took mental energy and all of that kind of stuff, and maybe I wasn't in the right headspace to be tackling it this month. Maybe that's why. Do check trigger warnings, because there are a lot of them in this book, certainly for things like alcoholism, sort of spousal abuse, that kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely check trigger warnings, because it's not for the faint-hearted, but I wouldn't say it's like properly in your face, but there are a lot of instances within this book that could trigger somebody if they didn't realise they were in it. It was interesting to see how a woman in that period of time is in sort of a very male-dominated world of aviation and being a pilot at that point, and how she was perceived and how she got into it and all of that kind of stuff, and what roles were available to her. Certainly as she wasn't one of the rich people as well. So there's an element of gender and class that comes into her story, which did make it interesting and a good look at sort of history in that kind of way. One of the things I wasn't sure was necessary was the actress. I liked the fact that they were there because they did act as a bit of a cleanse between each of Marion's sections, because they were much quicker to get through. I don't know why that was. But also I'm not 100% sure what they add to the story. So maybe they could have been removed. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it, because as I said, I was glad they were there because I was like, cool, we've got through another section. We're now into this bit, and I can read this bit fairly easily before we go back into the slog. I did find it a slog. However, I really did enjoy the ending to this book and how it wrapped up, and why you got so many perspectives of people and other people's stories. I thought it was quite clever and interesting. So I gave this one 3.5 stars, similarly to a lot of the other books this month. My main feeling when I think back on it is, wow, that was a slog, so maybe it shouldn't be that high. But then when I really sit and think of it, I can think of lots of parts of it that I really did enjoy. So yeah, take that how you will. That's all I can really say on it. The next book I read will come as no surprise, but it's book 5 in the Bridgerton series. So this is To Sir Philip with Love, which is Eloise's story. And again, for the What Victoria Read Summer Challenge, this is my second-hand book, which was Books and Bargains prompt, because all of this series came from my mum, so it came second-hand to me. I love Eloise. This is by far my favourite Bridgerton book. I may be slightly biased because my daughter is called Eloise, so reading it, there were parts of me thinking of her. I gave this one 4 stars. All of the other books in the series have been 3.5. This is probably the only one that I'm a little bit sad to pass back into the world, but as I'm not keeping any of the other series, there's no point keeping this one. But this is by far my favourite. So in this, we're probably just after sort of Penelope and Colin's wedding. We're not too far from that, and we're following Eloise, who has been corresponding with Sir Philip, who lives in a stately home outside London. I think it's Gloucestershire. And he writes and sort of proposes, well, he proposes the idea of marriage, and would she be willing and interested in it. So she ups and leaves in the middle of a ball so that her family don't realise to go and meet Sir Philip and see how they get on and that kind of thing. If you're trying to put sort of romance tropes to this, this is very much the single dad trope, because Sir Philip has 2 children. He is a widower, and part of the reason he wants a wife is for his children more than for him. So yeah, very much single dad trope. And yeah, as I said, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, is it also because I came off the back of this, which I found hard, and this is a very easy read in comparison? I don't know. Is it because my daughter's called Eloise, so I have that affinity with the character anyway? Again, I don't know. But yeah, thoroughly good time. I did kind of miss not having Lady Whistledown in it, but you know, we know what's happened with that now by this time. And also, I don't get why Julia Quinn can't write a nice male main character. Why do all of them come across as sort of grumpy and arrogant and not particularly thoughtful to their women? I don't know whether it's supposed to be a time period reason, but yeah, she doesn't seem to be able to write a nice male main character. I mean, Sir Philip was fine, but again, like all of the others, including all of the Bridgerton boys, they've got their issues and flaws, and they don't come across very well in these books. The other thing I liked is that this basically follows like 3 weeks. It's a very quick short time span, which I like, rather than it spanning months and you've got to try and keep up where you are and that kind of stuff, which is good. And obviously I can't not read these and think how they'll turn it into the series, and I think this will be a very entertaining series, although the Eloise in the book and personality wise and that kind of thing is slightly different to the Eloise in the show, so I don't know whether it will portray as well. And obviously they've messed around with the timeline and all of that kind of stuff anyway, so it probably won't be anything like this book anyway. But there we go. 4 stars, really enjoyed it. And that is To Sir Philip with Love, which is the 5th Bridgerton book by Julia Quinn. I then moved on to the other oldest book on my TBR that I didn't get through to in July, and that was Lovestruck by Laura Jane Williams. This I added to the beautiful book prompt by Mary Among Stories. Not by, but for Mary Among Stories. I like the colours on this, it's got sprayed edges. I thought that counts as a beautiful book. So yeah, this we are following Becca, who basically has everything in life other than the husband that she wants, the Mr. Right, which subsequently will lead to the children that she's after. So she holds a manifestation ceremony within her salon, and basically asks for that. And at that moment, her ex-boyfriend, the one that sort of got away, the love of her life, texts her. And in this we're following 2 timelines, one where she texts him back and one where she doesn't. Laura Jane Williams is a very easy author to read, which is nice. So I did get through this pretty quick. I liked the unusual way of telling the story, although I've just complained about weird timelines with this one. I found it very easy with this and very clear, and although we were following 2 like parallel timelines, we were at the same time in the year and all of that kind of thing with each of them, so that helped. So like at this point in the year we're here, and that was good. There are a few sort of subplots in this that I wasn't too keen on, and I could have done away with that, but that's probably a personal opinion. And it was very obvious where this was going to end, but then most romance novels are, so how much can I complain on that one? It's nice that the character was in her 30s. It seems rare to find a romance book with a slightly older protagonist. However, she did come across as a bit desperate and a bit needy and a bit... she sort of just went with the first thing that came to her. That's how it came across. So I didn't like that aspect of the character. Because all of the decisions seem really rushed and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Again, this is my 2nd Laura Jane Williams of the year. I listened to one on audio and I've read this. I would say this is up there as one of my favourites. I still think I'll Stop is my favourite one of her books, but enjoyed it, and definitely an interesting take on a romance which you don't always get. So the last book I read was on audio, and that was The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. And again, I use this as a library or borrowed book for the Charlie Brooke Reads prompt, because I borrowed it from my library app. This we are following, well, we got dual POV, so we're following Chrissy, who is a 8-year-old girl who kills a small boy, and we're following her from that event until her arrest. And then we've also got Julia, who is Chrissy but older, post prison, new identity, that kind of thing, and she is tackling with that sort of guilt whilst being a mother herself to her own daughter. And this was narrated by Kristen Atherton, and it was superb. It is by far the best audiobook I've ever listened to. I'm fairly new to audiobooks, so that's probably not saying a lot, but by far the best. And I actually googled her to see what else she'd done, and she's done so many audiobooks, so I could easily go down a hole of that. But just the way she acted throughout this book was superb and really made for a good reading experience of it, and she made it for me. I don't know whether I would have enjoyed enjoyed's the wrong word, appreciated this book as much if it wasn't for that. It obviously does explore some really dark topics because we're looking at murder of a child murdering a child. It's not a fun topic, but I think it was explored well. Sorry, my camera battery went, so if the lighting or the angle or whatever's changed, that's why. But where was I? I was talking about The First Day of Spring, wasn't I, by Nancy Tucker. So yeah, this book has a lot of dark topics, as I've said. But it was really well done and interesting seeing the different emotions the child has, Chrissy has, sort of the naivety of it and that kind of thing compared to the adult Julia, and that stuff. It's also really hard not to feel sorry for Chrissy. She has a horrid life. But at no point are you expected to forgive her for her actions, which I liked. You can feel empathy for her but still not think that she's a good person or anything like that, because obviously she wasn't very, but misguided, definitely, but did some horrid things. So again, it's a whole nurture-nature debate thing with it as well, which I really enjoyed. So the book itself, like the story itself, is very good, but the narration makes it. I gave it 4.5 stars. I don't know, I think because of the topic matter, I don't feel like I can give it a 5-star. I don't know. I didn't get the 5-star feel from it, but I did really enjoy it or appreciate it. I don't like saying enjoy it for the topic that it is. But yeah, so that's The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. And that was my reading for August. Having gone through it, it doesn't seem quite as bad as I thought in my head. Certainly the end of the month I had some really good reads, and they were 4s and 4.5s, so hopefully that continues into September. For the challenge that I've been doing over the last 3 months, I didn't complete it. I didn't think I would. I had 6 of the 25 prompts left to fill, so about 75% complete, maybe slightly more, for that one, which I think is good going for the speed that I read and that kind of stuff. So yeah, looking forward to the Burr months and getting into that sort of cozy reading time. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments on the books that I've read, put them in the box below. If you fancy it, click that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!